Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Tiffini Bell, and she helps people regain their financial peace through bankruptcy. Welcome to the show, Tiffini.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, you are welcome. I am looking forward to getting into this conversation because with what's going on in the world right now, obviously it's a huge event the world over, but it impacts us on a local level here in the Atlanta area as well. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be dealing with bankruptcy. But tell me a little bit more about your business first and who it is that you help there.
Okay, well, I'm a partner at Holloway Bell law firm in Atlanta, and we focus on family law and bankruptcy. And so we help people who have seen an unforeseen financial crisis, and we help them achieve financial peace through bankruptcy.
Yeah, financial peace is something that, the finances are one of the leading causes of divorce, if it's not the leading cause of divorce. So it's a major stressor. And like I said, this time right now that people are going through, it's a major stressor. So, talk to me about what you perceive right now in what people are going through. What are the first signs that they might be getting themselves in trouble?
Well, with this crisis, I think it's unique because it was very sudden. Even though some of the markers were there that something was happening, a lot of people literally were laid off immediately when this happened. A lot of people in the service industry, the travel industry, it's just like an immediate stop on their income. And so what we have seen is because people weren't planning for this wasn't something they anticipated, and they didn't think that even if this virus spread, that their jobs would be affected. It's really an abrupt stop to their income. And so a lot of people immediately lost out on health insurance. They lost out on income. I've had mothers call me, the fathers can't pay child support. It's just the immediate stop. And then you have the additional issue of schools being out. So now you have this trying to find daycare, trying to find alternative childcare and paying for that. So we've seen a lot of people have issues with that, but your bills still occur. You still have to pay rent and car insurance, car note. And so what has happened is people just are at a loss about what to do. And because nobody knows how long this is going to last, people are hesitant about using their savings because you don't want to exhaust your savings if this lasts 6 months, 18 months, like they're saying. So I have come up with some tips that I tell people what they should do to kind of combat this.
Well, great. Before you get into that, I just want to reiterate that nobody was really prepared for this at all. And if stats serve me correctly here, I think about 40% of the population, and they're probably those people who are in the service-based industries, they don't have $400 in their savings accounts to make them last. So whatever these tips are going to be extremely useful to them. So go ahead and tell us.
So the first thing I suggest to people is not to panic. There are a lot of, the Congress just passed the stimulus package. There's a lot of other avenues that you can go. So the first thing is not to panic because everybody is going through a financial difficulty. So you're not alone. You are in the majority in this circumstance. The second thing is I would tell people to actually sit down and itemize their bills. And a lot of people don't do that because it's scary to sit down and say, I owe this much. But when you're facing a crisis, you need to kind of face it head on. So you need to just sit down and just make a list of everybody you owe. And then you need to prioritize. So what are our basic needs? Housing, utilities, food, transportation. So those are the things that you need to prioritize when you think about paying things. Pay your rent if you can. Pay your gas bill. Pay for your car because you need to get back and forth when the economy does pick back up. So those are the things you should focus on. Maybe not necessarily focusing on your credit card bills right now if you don't have the funds to pay. And then the next thing I would say is reach out to those people. Reach out to Visa, reach out to MasterCard, reach out to American Express. Explain, hey, my job was cut, and my hours were cut. I need to work out something with you. The worst thing you could do is just ignore it and just kind of like not talk to people and not say anything. Because they don't know you're in trouble, they can't help. And then maybe you need to look at bankruptcy. The bankruptcy courts have shut down, but we can file electronically. So I can file your case. You're protected until we go to court. If it's in a month, 2 months, you'll still be protected. And nobody can come repossess your car. They can't foreclose on you. They have to stop calling you. So that's the option that I'm giving people. You can still file. We're still open. And since everything is electronically, we can still help you virtually, even though we might not be able to meet in person.
Well, those are some very good tips, certainly. What we see initially is this panic. Everybody's panicking, wondering how they're going to pay their bills, but, itemizing everything and realizing what you're spending and what you shouldn't be spending is certainly a great way to save some money, and then prioritizing the needs, the things that you must have. Are there any avenues where people can reach out and get help in the Atlanta area for things like paying bills or getting groceries, or are the car companies still taking payments if you're in trouble? Will they give you any relief? Do you know?
Well, I know that a fund has been created. I would suggest people contact their local churches. The churches are still open. I know the United Way of Atlanta has created a task force to assist people. The Department of Labor, the Georgia Department of Labor, is assisting people. You can do an online unemployment application. And even if your job hasn't given you the paperwork, but they've told you verbally, hey, we're closing up, you can still file for your unemployment. I will tell people not to wait till you get some paperwork from these companies, because a lot of the companies are struggling. They're laying off human resources. They may not actually give you a letter saying you've been laid off. I think as far as the utility companies, in the city of Atlanta, the mayor has stopped any disconnections. But I will still tell people, if you're behind on your utilities, get on the payment plan, because when this period stops, they're going to lift the ban on disconnections, and then they're going to just disconnect everybody. Right. So this is the time that you can really work out a payment arrangement with the utility companies. Same with your landlord. I just got a note that the judge in the county where Atlanta is has stopped evictions. So they can't evict you for a period of time. But when that ban is lifted, they're going to pick right back up. So this is a time to reach out to your landlord to say, hey, I need some help, or contact a nonprofit to help you with rental assistance.
Right. There seems to be a pause right now with, work. And if you are in trouble, you need to take this time and really look at those tips that you just gave, and, try and get your life sorted out in this time, so that when that ban is lifted, like you said, you'll be prepared at least. Now, for those people that are looking for unemployment, how quickly will that relief come in for them? Do you know?
I don't know. But when you apply for unemployment, immediately you can start doing what we call a certification process. So every week you call in and say, hey, I still have not found a job. You do that immediately. And unemployment, if nobody objects to it, should only take 2 or 3 weeks to start the process. They do direct deposits to your account, and you can do, like I said, everything online, which is good. And as far as people who have like child support obligations, the unemployment can help with that. You can tell them to take the child support out of the unemployment, or you can contact the child support agency directly and pay. And so that's just something that can kind of help you. Because one thing about child support is they're going to come after you if you don't pay, even if you don't have a job. So you really, really need to be proactive on debt like that, because the obligation is still there, even though you are unemployed.
Yeah, and that comes back to that prioritize again.
Right.
What are the things that you really, really need to be focusing your attention on? There's other things that may be a little bit more forgivable, but things like child support, they're going to come after you for that. So,
exactly.
Great points. Now, we've talked about the individuals, and obviously you said that stimulus package was passed by Congress today.
It was.
Sure. It was. Okay, great. And hopefully that will get some extra cash in people's pockets in the near future, but it's still probably, a few weeks away. What should people be doing really in the meantime? You mentioned the churches. What kind of services do they offer?
Well, rental assistance. They help with utility assistance. So you take your utility bill up there and they'll pay it for you. You take your rent, like your lease, and they'll pay that for you. This is probably an opportunity for people maybe to start thinking about getting roommates. If you're in a house by yourself, maybe you can find a friend or something and y'all can live together and kind of save on that rental expense. This is probably a good time to maybe have a yard sale or, maybe sell things.
Right. There's many ways to, maybe get rid of some of the stuff that you don't need, which is a good thing always. Right. All right. Let's shift focus a little bit here, Tiffini, and let's talk about the businesses, because the businesses are obviously hurting as well as the individuals. What can businesses do now if they've been shut for 2 to 4 weeks or even longer? That is really going to cripple them, right?
Yeah, and I think that because I'm a small business owner, so I'm sympathetic to the small business owners out there, because we pour all of our energy and resources into our business. And so this is a perfect opportunity for businesses to kind of change the trajectory of what they do. I read an article about a catering business that did corporate catering. And of course, all of those have been canceled now. So now they have shifted their business into doing curbside dinners for families. So you call them, they bring the food out to your car, and then that's how they're making their money. So if I was a small business owner, I would try to think about how I could change my business to fit this new reality that we're in. You probably need to think about reducing your payroll, because usually that's your biggest expense. So if it's people there that you are not needed right now, you may want to let them go. Let them know that, hey, we will bring you back when the economy picks back up, but you really need to shave the payroll. But businesses can also file bankruptcy. So if you're just in a situation where you cannot just handle the rent and the food expenses or the inventory expenses, you can file a bankruptcy and still continue to operate. So if you file what we call a Chapter 11, you're able to continue to operate your business, and it will help you deal with the creditors that you have, but still be able to bring in money to continue to operate your business. So it just goes back to the tips before. A small business needs to look at their inventory, the assets that they have, look at their expenses, look at their personnel, and figure out who they need to cut or what they need to cut. If they have large deliveries of like food, at this point, you probably don't need to keep that. So maybe you need to cut those deliveries and kind of repurpose the inventory that you have.
There's a lot of tough decisions that need to be made in all areas, but it does make you look deeper into your business and see where some of the money that is going and where you're really losing some of the money, and what practices that you should really be doing instead to be more profitable in the long run.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the misconceptions and maybe some misinformation about bankruptcy. At what point would a business really be thinking about bankruptcy? What what is going on within the business that they should say, all right, I think it's time to file, a Chapter 11 or whatever else there is?
Well, I think for a business, it goes back to looking at the money you're bringing in. If you've gotten to the point where what you're bringing in is not covering the basic operating expenses of the business, then you need to be thinking about a Chapter 11. If you're in a contract, a lease, or you're buying office equipment or anything that's causing you a financial strain, you should think about filing a bankruptcy, because you're able to renegotiate leases in the Chapter 11. Your rental property, they can't put you out in the Chapter 11. So that's when you need to kind of start thinking about what you need to do to keep operating. If you have decided that you do not want to operate anymore, that you just want to close the business, then you could do a Chapter 7, which will stop the operation of the business, and the court can help you sell off your inventory and make sure that you just kind of wind the business up correctly, so you don't have creditors coming after you personally. So you just have to make a decision. Do I want to keep the business open? If I do, then I need to do a Chapter 11. If I don't, then I need to do a Chapter 7 and just wipe everything out.
So what do you see most businesses at the end of this period? And again, I want to stress, we don't know right now. We're right in the middle of it. Just how long this is going to go on. What do you see most businesses doing? Trying to file a Chapter 11 and, build back up from a bit of a foundation, or, Chapter 7 and just say packing it in and looking for something else to do?
I think it would depend on the type of business. I think a lot of these restaurants are probably going to end up doing Chapter 7s, because depending on how long the quarantines are happening. So you can't serve food, you can't have people in your restaurant. But even after they lift that, I think so many people are going to be out of work that they're not going to be eating out. And so I think a lot of the small business, the kind of boutique restaurants, are probably going to have to do a Chapter 7. The good thing about the bankruptcy code is you can start out at an 11. And that's what I would suggest any business. Start with the Chapter 11, try to work the plan to see if you can keep operating. And then if you can't, then you can change it to a Chapter 7. So that way you're giving yourself an opportunity to be successful. And if it doesn't work out, then you can change to a Chapter 7.
And again, the length of time, even after this, like you're saying, there's going to be, the world really is going to be a little bit different than it was before. Yeah. There's going to be different thought processes. Maybe people won't eat out as much. Maybe they won't have the money to eat out as much. But it's going to affect all different kinds of businesses in all different kinds of ways for, not just the immediate future, but, for the foreseeable future as well.
Yes, definitely.
So let's talk about some of the myths surrounding bankruptcy. What do you hear from people that, maybe are a little hesitant to file bankruptcy?
Okay, one of the big misconceptions that I hear is that once you file bankruptcy, you'll never be able to buy anything using credit again. And that's not true. I've been doing bankruptcy now almost 10 years. And I have had former clients that I see in the grocery store, just out socially, or who've called my office who, after a bankruptcy, have bought the car that they want and the house that they want. They started businesses. They put their children through school. So a bankruptcy is not a death sentence. A bankruptcy would not end you being able to get your credit or use your credit to buy anything else. I think a bankruptcy is really a smart decision if you cannot pay your bills, if you're overwhelmed, if you have, and we didn't talk about it, medical expenses. Some people are going to have huge medical costs after this. If they get sick and they're in the hospital and they don't have insurance, then how are you able to recover? You won't be able to. And so I think that's one of the misconceptions, that you should try to pay your bills and not take the easy route out. If you really cannot pay your bills, bankruptcy, that's what bankruptcy is for. So I think the second misconception is that you will lose all of your assets. I think people think they'll be selling your clothes in front of the courthouse, which is not true. You'll be able to keep your clothes. You'll be able to keep your grandmother's heirloom that she gave you. You can keep your car. You can keep your house in certain situations. So you don't necessarily have to be just rid of all of your assets in the bankruptcy. There's a way to do a bankruptcy and keep certain things that you want to keep. Now, of course, you won't be able to buy mink furs and have 10-carat diamond rings initially, but you will be able to keep your basic things that you need to live.
And what about the situation, because I'm sure this is going to happen a lot, people haven't had the money to pay their rent, they're going to end up getting evicted, they might lose their cars as well. Are they going to be able to get into another rental and another car if they file bankruptcy? You
will. And so what happens is usually after the bankruptcy is over, you will be able to rebuild. And it is two types of bankruptcies. If you're already going through an eviction, your car's been repossessed, I would suggest you file a Chapter 7, which wipes away all of your debt. And since they're taking your assets anyway, you might as well do that. It takes 4 months for it to be over. And you'll be able to get a new car. You'll be able to get a new rental property. You'll be able to even buy a house, because after a year after bankruptcy, you're eligible for mortgages with most of the lenders. And even with the government-backed loans, you're able to get it after a period of time. So you will be able to get a new rental. You'll probably be able to afford more in a house because you won't have credit card debt anymore, because that's wiped away. You won't have medical bill debt, that's wiped away. So you'll really be able to use, when you get a new job, your income to get somewhere nice that you can afford.
I think those last few words that you said there are the most important ones, that you can afford.
Right.
You've got to have your income. Bankruptcy is giving you a fresh start, but you can't go on and make the same mistakes that you made already. Now, how long does a bankruptcy stay on your record, and does it have such big impact now that it used to in the past?
Well, it'll stay on your credit up to 7 years. What I tell people, because that does scare a lot of people, but if you think about it, a garnishment stays on your credit, a repossession stays on your credit. So if you're to the point that you're facing these negative things, your credit is already low. And so the bankruptcy won't necessarily ruin it anymore. In fact, it will take all of those negative things off. So now instead of having a garnishment, a repossession, and a foreclosure, that's all gone. And you just have one negative thing, which is the bankruptcy, instead of 3 or 4 or 5 negative things on your credit. So it actually, even though it's on there, everything before it is wiped away. So you don't have to worry about dealing with all your old credit. You can start new. You can't be discriminated against for filing bankruptcy. You can't lose your job if you have one for filing bankruptcy. That cannot be a basis for you not getting housing. It cannot be a basis for you not being hired for a job. So I think a lot of people think it's almost criminal, but it's not. So it's not going to go on your record like a felony necessarily. So you are protected in certain things, and the government is really, really protective when people file bankruptcy, that they're not discriminated against for that.
Yeah, I know in some rental agreements it asks you if you've had a bankruptcy in the last 7 years. Are they allowed to ask that question if it doesn't have any effect on whether you are eligible for the house or not?
They are, and it's a lot of law in different jurisdictions about whether they can ask. I think one of the reasons they ask too is because if you're in the act of bankruptcy, it is some things that the landlord needs to do. And so I think they ask that question for 2 reasons: to know, and also to protect themselves if you're in the act of bankruptcy when you sign the lease, because there's some nuances about that if you're in the bankruptcy while you sign the lease.
Of course, and there's always 2 sides to that as well. There's the tenant and then the owner as well. They each want to protect themselves from losing money. Tiffini, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background. What made you get into law and practice family law and bankruptcy?
Well, I am a native of Atlanta. I graduated from the University of Georgia School of Law, and I didn't really never have any interest in bankruptcy actually when I was in law school. But I got a job with a bankruptcy firm, and that's what we did exclusively was bankruptcy. And I really, really enjoyed it. I really felt like I was able to help people. Most of the people that I meet that I've represented are not people who just ran up their credit or who were physically irresponsible. A lot of people have a job loss, unexpected medical bills, car breaks down, it's $1,000 to get fixed. Now you can't pay other bills. And so I really felt like I was helping people who got in situations that they didn't necessarily foresee or necessarily anticipate. And that's why I went to law school, is to really help people in those situations and be able to use my expertise to actually see a resolution and to give people the peace that I think they should have.
Mm. Yeah, the thing with lawyers is sometimes they get a bad rap, but really there are major problem solvers. People have problems, and bankruptcy is specifically a big one that affects a lot of people. And without lawyers, they don't get the help that they need to solve their problems. So I'm glad that you do what you do. If there's one thing that you learned early on in your practice that kind of made an impact and still resonates with you today, what would that be?
Well, and it goes back to what you said about helping people. I had to learn also that in this, and I tell my clients, we have to also take personal responsibility too. Mm-hmm. So when I file your bankruptcy, I have conversations about, I don't want to see you again. Like, I want to help you out of this situation, but we need to take personal responsibility and accountability to make sure that you don't have to file again. And so that's one of the things that I learned early, that we have to make sure that our clients understand that we are helping them, but they do have to take responsibility for the reason why they're in the situation.
Right, and I'm sure there's a lot of education throughout the process. You're really leading them to, well, look, here's where you made the mistake before, don't do that again, and this is what you could do in the future, right?
Right, because you're required to do credit counseling prior to filing for bankruptcy. And a lot of people hate that. But I find that my clients afterwards are actually, and one thing that I did is I did the credit counseling for myself. And I did that so when people had questions, I would be able to be educated about the course enough to tell them or help them with it. But everybody tells me that they really learn a lot from the credit counseling, and they start to apply that in their life, even when they're in the bankruptcy case. People say, well, in the credit counseling, they told me to do this. And, so they are learning through the process.
And I like the financial piece that you said as well. Obviously, Dave Ramsey's got that great course out that a lot of people resonate with to get financial peace as well. Some good tips there. Yeah. Well, Tiffini, this has been extremely helpful. It's very, very up in the air time right now. We don't know, just how things are going to pan out. But what we do know is a lot of people are going to be hurting and are going to need your services in filing for bankruptcy and getting help and answering a lot more of the questions that they might have on their minds. Tiffini, give us the details where people can get in contact with you so that you can give them the help that they need.
Okay, so we do offer free consultations for our bankruptcy clients. And in the consultation, it's just about your financial picture. And so some people, bankruptcy is not an option, but we do still give the free financial consultation. Our office number is 678-390-3503. You can find us at hblawatl.com. Again, that's HB, the word law, atl.com. The name of the firm is Holloway Bell, and we are on Facebook as Holloway Bell, and we're on Instagram as South ATL _lawyers. So you can reach out to us in any of our social media platforms or online. You're actually able to book online too through our social media as well. So reach out to us. We also have a podcast too, and you can see that on anywhere that you subscribe to podcasts. The name of our podcast is Lawyers Making Sense of It All. And so please reach out and listen to us because we talk about a lot of interesting topics as well on there.
Definitely. I think that's the best advice is reach out. If you need help, reach out, ask an expert, and get the help that you need, because ultimately it's going to make your life better in the long run. Well, Tiffini Bell, we really enjoyed talking with you today. Thanks for being my guest on the Trust Factor Radio today. And if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that like button and share, and we will see you next time on the show.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.